Hello, Veteran Outdoorsman here again. Today, what we're going to talk about is standard ammo for big game rifles. By standard, I mean non-premium ammo, not Federal Premium or Winchester Black Box. You know, nothing that's got the nickel-coated brass, anything like that. Premium Nosler bullets, stuff like that. Talking Winchester Power Points, Remington Core Locks, Federal Power Shock, I believe is what they're called. Things like that. Everyday, working class ammunition. Readily available, readily affordable. And we're also going to talk mostly standard calibers, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, some of the beliefs on non-premium ammo, especially in hunting rifles, is that it's not as accurate and that it doesn't perform as well on game. Now, if you want to split hairs, those things might be true, because you may have a rifle that with a specific premium load or a special hand load with premium bullets may shoot phenomenal 3/8, quarter-inch, half-inch groups at 100 yards. And with Remington Core Locks, Winchester Power Points, it may shoot an inch and a half. Now, on a big game animal, are you really going to notice the difference on an animal with a 6 to... Let's go from antelope to elk, a 6 to 12 inch kill zone, depending on the animal, shot generally inside 300 yards. Are you going to notice the difference in a quarter, half, even an inch in group size at 100 yards? Probably not. Are you going to be able to hold tight enough in a field position that you can even ring out that type of an accuracy? Probably not. If you lay in the prone, or you kneel, or you are seated and support on your knees with your elbows, and you have your premium load and your non-premium load, are you going to group any tighter with your premium load than your non-premium load? Maybe a little bit, but probably not enough to notice. So, practical accuracy for hunting. I'm not talking match shooting. Hey, if you're going to go out there, you're going to shoot 1,000-yard matches, you're going to shoot bench rest, you're going to shoot silhouettes, shoot the best ammo you can afford. Better yet, get the best reloading equipment you can afford, the best components, best powders, best bullets, best brass, and load up a load specifically for your rifle that rings out every bit of accuracy as you can. Have it blueprinted, whatever it takes. But for hunting, when you're going to be shooting in less than perfect positions, you're going to be hopped up on adrenaline, etc., etc. Maybe you want the bit of confidence. Sure, hey, if it makes you confident, then go for it. But it's not necessary. So we're going to go, and then also, it's said that they don't perform as well on big game. Well, maybe a Nuzzler partition, a Swift A frame, a Sirocco, an Nosler ballistic tip, maybe they have their niche, and they do. If you're on a special guided hunt somewhere and you've already spent several $1,000s, $50 a box for ammo, no big deal. You're going to Africa, you're going to Alaska, buy the best bullets you can, okay? You're going deer hunting, you're going elk hunting, you're going antelope hunting, sheep, maybe, whatever, with over-the-counter tags, doing it yourself. These bullets work fine. Now, I'm going to share some stories with you from notes that I've taken over the last 20-some years about performance and accuracy in rifles with non-premium ammo. Mostly with Remington Core Locks, also with some Winchester Power Points, some Winchester Silver Tips, and If I think of any others, I'll mention them. Now let's look at on-game performance. I've taken multiple deer with standard ammunition. Fact is, I can only think of a handful that I've taken with premium ammo, and generally that's because I had a rifle and a caliber where I couldn't find core locks, or I couldn't find power points, but I could find special Hornady load or something like that, and that's what I use, because that's what I can find. But Remington core locks, 30-06, my favorite rifle, my favorite caliber. Let's look at a few things. I've taken deer from 12 to just under 300 yards with 150 grain core locks. As a general rule, you get a hole the size of your pinky on the entrance, a whole 50-cent piece size exit. They run 50 to 100 yards and they die. That's simple. I took one deer close to 300 yards with a 30-06, 150 grain core locks. It was quartering to me. It entered the near shoulder, exited the far hip. I found it just inside the hide on the far hip, shattered the shoulder, the hip, and turned everything in between into goo, and I found a mushroomed bullet retaining about 70% of its original weight just inside the hide on the hip. Good penetration, good accuracy, good performance. I've seen multiple deer shot with 30-06 with 150 grain core locks. I can think of a large doe that I shot, and when I say large, field dressing between 110 and 115 pounds, at about 25 yards, boom, one behind the shoulder, 50-cent size exit, a blood trail that looked like you poured a bucket out, following it through the woods, ran about 50 yards, died. I've seen heavy bone hits and still good exit wounds. I think of a 8-pointer that I killed a few years ago. Again, 30-06, 150 grain bullet, 150 grain core locked. Shot at about 90 yards. Hit at the point of the shoulder, broke the spine, exited the far side. Dropped in its tracks, obviously, broke its spine. But the bullet held together on bone hits. I've heard that these bullets don't hold together when they hit bone, even at close range, and they do. I shot a button buck 3 years ago, and broke both shoulders and exited, and it was nasty. There was an exit the size of my fist, but it broke both shoulders and exited. The on-game performance of these rounds is excellent. I could tell you story after story. I've got a buddy that has killed deer after deer after deer with 30-30, with Remington core locks and Winchester power points, and it's the same story. Entrance the size of your pinky, exit the size of a 50-cent piece, a blood trail 50 to 100 yards long if they don't drop in their tracks. Now, let's get into accuracy. Again, I've never had a problem with accuracy. Now, I've had a few guns that didn't group very well with this type of ammo, but they didn't group well with any ammo, so I don't count them. Because even with premium ammo, the best I could ring out 2.5-inch groups with a scoped rifle from a bench rest, and I don't consider that acceptable. If you do, you're going to hunt 100, 150 yards, you're not going to shoot any further than that, fine. I prefer to get closer to the 1.5-inch range at 100 yards or less than 1.5 inches. So, my very first deer rifle of my own, a push feed Winchester Model 70, 30-06, 150 grain power points is what I started with, and it would print 3-inch groups cloverleafed at 100 yards. I switched to core locks because I liked the performance a little better. They seemed to hold together a little bit better, especially at higher velocities and at closer range, and not destroy as much meat, so I went to the core locks. And it would hold around 1 inch, 1.5 inches, depending on how I did that day and weather conditions, at 100 yards, which I thought was more than acceptable. And I killed deer out to close to 300 yards with that gun and that load. A Remington 700 and 308 that I had, an ADL. Beautiful gun. Old gun with an aluminum butt plate, an old gun. Weaver 4-power scope. 150 grain core locks. Yeah. You sensing a trend? At 100 yards, 1-inch groups all day long. 5-shot 1-inch groups from a bench all day long with a fixed 4-power Weaver scope. Awesome gun. Remington core locks, not premium ammo. A Marlin 336, 150 grain, you guessed it, Remington core locks. 100 yards, 1-inch groups all day long, clover leaves if I did my part. Great gun, great load, very accurate. My current larger big game rifle, and I have several rifles, but my current bigger game rifle, 30-06, Remington Model 798, which is an imported Mauser, Serbian Mauser action. Wonderful gun. I have a loopholed scope on it, 150 grain core locks. Shoots around an 1.25 inch, 1.5 groups at 100 yards, which I find fine. And I can tell you story after story after story of rifles that shoot this non-premium ammo, inch and a half groups at 100 yards. Great performance on game. A friend of mine killed a very large mule deer this past season, with, I believe, 150 grain Federal Power Shocks out of a 30-06, around 100 yards. Again, entrance, exit, dead deer. What more can you ask for? Now, you say, well, what about smaller calibers, higher velocity? Okay, I've got a cousin with a Remington 7600 and 243 that he's hunted with since he was about 12 years old. Okay? He's killed a handful of deer with this gun. It's an accurate gun. I've been with him when he shot it. It shoots sub 2-inch, I know. We never really measured the groups, but I can remember planking soda cans all day long at 100 yards with it. Hunting in the woods where we hunted, we really didn't care about group size. Wanted to be able to hit vitals every time. Set up a soda can at 100 yards. Lean up against the bed of your truck. Pow! Soda can goes down. You're good to go. You're not going to shoot past 100 yards in the thick woods of southeast Missouri. It's just not going to happen. Even if you did, even if you came out into a cow pasture or something, the deer was out there 200 yards, you could pop it pretty easy with that type of an accuracy. But for deer hunting, it was great. I can think of a doe that he killed, just picture perfect, about a 50-yard shot, right behind his shoulder, an exit a little bigger than a quarter. The deer ran just long enough for him to shuck a second shell and pull the trigger. As he pulled the trigger to shoot it another time to anchor it, it fell, and it was on the ground before the bullet got there. You know, it ran less than 10 yards, I'd say. Right behind his shoulder, good blood, good kill. I can tell you about my aunt with a Remington ADL Varmint 22-250, heavy barrel, and standard 55 grain soft point ammo, out of a 22-250, mind you. A large 8-point, I'm going to say dressing around 140 pounds, maybe a little larger. Nice 8-point with about a 14-inch spread. Fairly large bodied deer. Shot at about 50 yards, right behind his shoulder. The bullet didn't exit. Okay, that might bother you a little bit. The lungs were trash. The bullet held together and was found just inside the hide on the far side of the animal in a perfect mushroom. Again, retaining 70% of its bullet weight. The lungs were trash. The deer ran about 50 yards, began to stagger, and then she put one in its ear. It would have died right there. I don't recommend shooting deer with 55 grain bullets from a 22-250, but I throw that in there just to say, hey, even standard non-premium ammo works even in oddball calibers. Again, I don't recommend that 243, no problem at all. 100 grain power point, no problem at all. My father, with a Remington 700 243, killed a deer. 100 grain power point. Large 7-pointer, actually. Right behind his shoulder, again, you know. Golf ball size exit. Deer ran 20-30 yards. Dead deer. You don't have to shell out money for premium ammo if you don't want to. If you want to, if you're confident in it, if money's no object, by all means. But if you just want a round that's going to accurately take game animals at reasonable, even not so reasonable distances, look at Remington Core-Lock. Look at Winchester PowerPoint. Look at Federal Power Shock, I believe it's called. I think you're going to be impressed. Veteran Outdoorsman signing off. God bless you. We'll see you again.